Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another episode of Kast. And in today's episode, we're going to be briefly mentioning loot boxes, or loot box apocalypse. We're going to be talking about video games as a service, as well as a couple of things that I wanted to bring up about VR, more specifically VR in terms of multiplayer. And at the end, I want to bring a little bit of more positive note to all these terrible news that we've been hearing in the industry recently, because it's almost like we're at war. I've brought this up on another video as well. It's almost like we're at war and there's like no positivity to be had in the middle of this pretty chaotic phase that we're going through with the loot boxes and microtransactions and all of the shit storm that is pretty much coming down on the industry. So the very first thing that I wanted to bring up in today's Cast is I want to actually thank a couple of companies here. And I would want to thank three companies in particular. These companies are Warner Brothers, Electronic Arts, and Activision. And you guys might be thinking, oh, look at Rurikhan being all sarcastic and stuff. No, I'm genuinely thankful. I'm genuinely thankful that they've tried pushing this loot box envelope so hard to a point where it's everything people are talking about now. Like, that legitimately makes me happy, because this was a problem that was kind of like being very low-keyed and being defended by a lot of people. And they were like, oh, but they need the support because this, that, and the other. And nobody was really up in arms about it, you know, until a couple of months ago, so to speak. Nobody was really super upset about it. They were just like, yeah, you know, it's one of those things because gaming development is more expensive now and yada, 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 bullshit, 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 you know? And the fact that Warner Brothers, EA, and Activision brought it so hard onto the front because they tried being so greedy with how they were going to go about getting your money, it just makes me happy, because in doing so, what they ended up doing is now we have a bit more of a united front when it comes to the gaming community, in where pretty much everyone is universally against loot boxes. And I'm happy about it, because I even made, like I said, I even made a video back in July talking about this, because I was getting real upset about the direction things were taking. And lo and behold, now everybody else is going like, oh my God, fuck loot boxes. They're terrible. They're the devil. And in a way, I'm happy, because now we're actually all talking about it. And I know that a lot of developers are going to be thinking twice about using loot boxes in their video game, in their upcoming video game. And that is a good thing, because that means that hopefully moving towards the future, we're all going to be getting better video games where we don't have to deal with this kind of nonsense. So that is a very good thing. But on the other hand, it also makes me very sad. And I want to explain to you guys why exactly I'm sad, because it's not about the games themselves. It's not about, because, you know, it's like guys might think, oh, you're sad because you're not going to be able to play Shadow of War because it's not going to be as fun for you. And it's like, no, it's not just about the video game. It's about the team behind the video game, right? Because, I mean, you got to understand that a lot of times people just talk about, oh, this developer is terrible because they're doing this thing with loot boxes. But what you need to understand is, like, in a company, there's always a hierarchy, right? And not just a hierarchy, there's also different departments. So on a company like Warner Brothers, Electronic Arts, or Activision, you've got your creative people that are working on art for the video game, that are working on the art direction, that are working on the look and feel, that are working on the visuals. Then you got sound people that are working on how the game sounds, ensuring that it sounds as best as it can, ensuring that they got the right soundtrack, that they got the right, you know, proper sound effects and the sound distortions. It's just about everything. And then there are the people who are designing the levels and, you know, working on making sure that the levels are as fun as they possibly can be, and people working on cinematic content. These are all the people that are forming this cake, right, that you'll eventually eat. You'll eat all the layers of the cake. And then there's another department, which is the marketing department, which, interestingly enough, if you look at the work of YouTubers like me, live streamers, etc., we're kind of an extension of the marketing department of these companies nowadays. Did you ever think about that? I mean, we're essentially an extension. Like, whenever I look at a video game, I'm an extension of their marketing department, because I'm showing you this video game. Now, the difference is I get to choose how I portray that game, you know, and usually I tend to usually cover mostly games that I like, with rare exceptions. Sometimes I'll do first impressions on a game and I'll be like, what is this? You know, like yesterday. Anyway, so the marketing department, their job is not to change the way the look and feel of the game, is not to, you know, they really don't have they're not supposed to have a big say in how you experience a video game, right? Their job is just to ensure that the game makes as much money as possible. That's what they're there for. They're there to ensure maximum number of sales. And in my opinion, that's where marketing departments should have stayed. They should have stick to ensuring maximum number of sales. But what marketing departments started doing is they're now working on maximizing profits, not just sales, maximizing profits. So they want your money after you've bought the game. They want everything they can get out of you. Now, I understand why, because like I said, these teams are big, these teams are expanding, these teams are pushing the envelope in terms of graphical fidelity and sound. All that shit costs money. I get it. But the problem here is that marketing has gotten so deep into the games that marketing is now also dictating how the game is experienced. And that is where the problems begin. Because with all these loot boxes and all of this other nonsense that games are getting now, and for those of you who don't know which games I'm specifically talking about, I mentioned Warner Brothers, that is Shadow of War, orcs coming out of boxes and shit. I mentioned Electronic Arts, that is about Battlefront 2, because it's basically pay to win with the way that they've done their microtransactions and loot boxes and crafting systems and all this other bullshit. And Activision, which recently came out with the brilliant idea of publicly opening loot boxes on the beach of Normandy for Call of Duty World. Can you imagine soldiers opening up loot boxes in the middle of World War II? Like, oh, dude, I got that M1 Garand that I needed, dude. Oh, fuck yeah. I'm really going to get them now. It's like, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, what are you thinking? Come on, man. It's bad enough you got that shit in your goddamn game. Now you're putting people opening up loot boxes on the beach of Normandy. That's not only disrespectful towards gamers, that's just straight up disrespectful towards the history of World War II. Okay, which I'm not a big World War II buff, but if I was, I'd feel pretty fucking insulted right about now. If I had fought the war, which I'm not old enough, I didn't even do the military. But if I had been there, or if I had family who had been there, I would be legit insulted. Like, what are you doing? You know? Anyway, not going to get into that too much anymore. But on regards to the marketing departments, so what I was saying is that now they're affecting people's enjoyment of the game. And how does that work? So, for instance, on the very specific case of Shadow of War, one of the main mechanics of Shadow of Mordor, at least, because I haven't played Shadow of War. I don't want to support the game in its current form. I plan on eventually buying it once it goes into some kind of deep discount, and I'll get it for $10 or something like that. But it's like one of the main mechanics of that series is you facing off against orcs and eventually you dominating or killing the orcs. And if you dominate them, they join your army. And if you kill them, they're gone forever, and another orc shows up and tries to take its place. And that was a cool mechanic. I'm actually not a big fan of, like, you know, dominating the orcs, forming my own orc army. I just liked the combat of that game because I thought it was fun. It was like I said multiple times, it's an orc torture simulator. So it allows me to torture orcs violently, and I like that. But ultimately, what you're creating here, because there's a lot of people that enjoyed building up their orc armies and stuff, and that was fun for them. But what you're doing here, you're cutting a big portion of the enjoyment of that game by having these orcs come out of boxes. Now let's think about this for a little bit, okay? So you want to develop an attachment to characters. That's how video games work. That's how, for instance, Xenoblade Chronicles, the first one, was able to drive me near to tears in the first, like, 2 hours of the game or whatever because of what happens, because of how they portray the characters, even though it was done very simply, but how they portrayed the characters and what happens very early in the game got me to be attached to one of the characters to a point where then something happened and I was just like, holy shit. You know, and there are multiple games that have been able to do that to me throughout the years, like including, for instance, Mass Effect 3, which is another EA title, which received a lot of critique. But like when that, I forget his name now because it's been so long. Was it Rex? You know, the bioengineered Krogan. There's a scene in there where well, you know, you've been having this Krogan in your party and you've been going on adventures together and trying to save humanity from the Reapers. You've been trying to save humanity from the Reapers and you're doing all of these things. So you develop an attachment to these characters, and at one point that character just pretty much makes the sacrifice play in order to save the rest of the team, and he just ends up throwing himself off a cliff or something. I think in the end, he ended up surviving it or something. But for a while there, you thought he was dead. And I was really just like, you know, I felt that. And that's what you're looking for in games. You're looking for attachment to characters, specifically in a game like Shadow of War. You're looking for attachment to characters. You know, you're looking to build a bond with characters. And it's important that the character has its own place in the world, you know? At least that's the way that I look at these kinds of things. You know, some people will say, oh, you're comparing Mass Effect to Shadow of War. These are two very different games. It's like, I'm not comparing these two games. I'm comparing the concept of character development and the impact that those characters will have on your own story that you are telling, you know? And ultimately, what ends up happening with the loot box system that you have in Shadow of War is like, how the fuck am I supposed to relate to an orc that came out of a goddamn box? He came out of a fucking box. You know, it's not like this orc was roaming the world. It's not like I've had encounters with him and I beat him or he beat me or he was securing this fortress God knows where and I was doing this and he was doing that. You know, there's no bond there. And when that orc that came out of a fucking box, when he dies, or actually, can't you like sacrifice them in order to get other loot? I think you can actually sacrifice the orcs and transform them into items. Like, what are you doing? Like how, you know, these orcs, they have so much character because the development team actually did a great job. Like I'm not joking. I'm serious about this. The development team did a really good job in creating these orcs and giving them personality, and to the point where the loot box part of it is just downright disrespectful, not just to players, but to the designers themselves. You know, because like they've put their blood, sweat, and tears into that. And to see it cheapened to the point of an orc coming out of a fucking box. I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that. You know, that's what I'm getting at. It's like, you know, I'm thankful for the fact that this issue was brought to light, and at the same time, I'm really sad for the teams behind these titles. Same thing for Electronic Arts. Like, can you imagine the work behind developing Battlefront 2, right? Like the visual assets, the sound assets, the art, which all looks extremely faithful to the original. I know that Battlefront 1 did. And they've spent all of this time working on this game to, you know, to ensure that you as the player enjoy it as much as you possibly can. And then the marketing department comes in and says, oh yeah, we're going to make it pay to win so that people who put more money into the game, they're going to have an advantage over other players. Can you imagine being the person behind, the person who designed the weapons, the look and feel of the, well, most of it is taken from the movies, but what I'm saying is like the person who balanced out the weapons, who spent time like spreadsheeting this shit out and really making sure, okay, this weapon's going to be balanced like this, players are going to get this weapon at this point and this and that and the other, and okay, and this is going to be the kind of progression that players are going to have. And someone from marketing comes in and it's like, nah bro, loot boxes, motherfucker, that's what we're going to do. Can you imagine that person like probably went home and just like got completely wasted and then just, you know, stayed depressed for like the whole weekend thinking about what the marketing department just did to him. It's ridiculous. Not even going to bring up the Activision thing because I've talked at length about what happened with Destiny 2, even though I know Destiny 2 is Bungie and whatever. I don't know which marketing department forced the whole fucking bright engrams from the get-go and the way that they worked and the way that all of the loot kind of works in Destiny 2, but yeah, it's pretty frustrating. Pretty freaking frustrating. And that's kind of like where I'm at with loot boxes. You know, I'm mad just like all of you guys are. I'm upset with the fact that, you know, I want to play some of these games and at the same time I don't want to support them because I think that they're not worthy of support because of what they ended up doing. And then at the same time, I'm sad because of all of these teams that clearly put a lot of work into these titles only to be overruled by the marketing department and just like, boom, loot boxes all over this motherfucker. And then the other thing is games as a service. So let's talk about games as a service. So actually, no, before we get to that, we should bring up the whole Dauntless thing. So that was really cool. And it was somewhat unexpected because, so some of you guys know that I've been covering Dauntless a little bit. I took a little break because I want them to, you know, fix up the loot a little bit. You know, I want to see the game evolve a little bit more before I dedicate some more time to it. But I've enjoyed what I've played of it so far. I do feel that it's still very much in a beta state, which it is. It's still in closed beta. So it is to be expected. So I was waiting for the game to develop a little more. And then this news comes along where Phoenix Labs actually removes loot boxes from their games. Now, let's think about this. This is a free-to-play game. Free-to-play game. Removes loot boxes. Now, you guys remember when I told you that a company with the name of Phoenix Labs would never let us down because I love phoenixes. It's like my favorite mythical creature of all time is the phoenix. Rebirth from the ashes, all that stuff. Those of you who know me, you know that I love phoenixes. So the fact that this company was called Phoenix Labs, I was like, there's no way they're going to fuck this up. And lo and behold, they come in and they're just like, man, fuck loot boxes. Now, if only they would remove the other loot box thing, which is when you kill a monster, you get an ether core that you then go and you crack it open and you get parts from that monster. You know, it's not really a loot box mechanic because it essentially works. Because I've had friends of mine talk to me, oh, dude, but that game has loot boxes even for when you kill monsters. And I'm like, no, it works just like Monster, which is you kill a monster, you get a bunch of parts from that monster. The monster loot boxes work the same way. It's just you have to bring them back to town and crack open the core, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I would rather they would just, you know, just do the cracking of the core instantly as soon as you kill the monster and pretend the core doesn't even exist. Just give us the mats. I think that would be cool. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The big thing that they changed was the chroma cores, which would be the loot boxes that would give you stuff like paints for your suits, because you can actually paint the different parts of your outfits and stuff. You know, all of the cosmetic customization stuff, they got rid of loot boxes for that, and basically what they're going to do is they're going to sell them piecemeal to players. So if you want to buy a specific chroma, color, specific thing, they're just going to sell it to you outright. And thank God for that. Like, legitimately, thank God for that, because that is the proper way to do it in a free-to-play game. Like, forget all of these fucking loot box horse shit mechanics and just go back to having people enjoy a game. And this is probably going to cost them some money in the long run, but it will definitely earn them a lot of goodwill from players. Like, I already love the game. I wasn't even critical about their loot boxes because, like I said, it's a free-to-play game. You know, it's like, what are you going to do? They're not even a $60 game. They're a completely free-to-play game, even though you have to pay if you want to play it right now. But that's because it's closed beta. Once it goes open, it's going to be completely free for everyone to play. And it was just refreshing to actually see a company take this stance. And, you know, maybe other companies will follow suit in that example and start getting rid of this ridiculous gambling horse shit that is loot boxes now. So good on Phoenix Labs for doing that. And if you guys don't know about Dauntless, by the way, you can look up in the channel. There's a bunch of videos on Dauntless. If you enjoy Monster Hunter, you're probably going to enjoy Dauntless. It's a really solid game. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up a little bit is games as a service. So everybody seems to be going for this. So this has been going on for a while. A lot of companies are now going for games as a service. Specifically, the Star Wars game, which I think it kind of started out as 1313. Then it was going to be the Visceral Star Wars game. Now Visceral got closed. and they want to remake that game into one of these games as a service thing. And it's like, you need to understand something. You really need to understand something. Not everybody wants games as a service. And when people do have games as a service, they play one game. That's it. Very few people play more than one game as a service. Very few people. Because they conflict with each other. Because games as a service, they tend to be time sinks. They want to keep you playing over and over and over again. And I just want to bring up something here, which is, if you want people to play your game more, the solution is not to get them invested almost like World of Warcraft did all those years ago. Like, you need to understand, that market is fucking over. Okay? I mean, there are still people who are playing MMOs and all this other stuff, but that market is ending. Nowadays, what people want is much more piecemeal experiences almost. I mean, the big portion of the gaming market nowadays, like I said, it is on the mobile, which is bad. It's real bad. But if you try to get them hooked on stuff where they have to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours to actually achieve anything in a video game, and I understand this concept probably sounds appealing to a lot of people, and you guys can talk about it in the comment section. Let me know all you think about it. But it's like, you need to understand that not everyone is interested in pouring hundreds of hours into every single video game they play. Like, there are some games that I want to play. I want to play them once, maybe twice, and be done with them. And that's okay. That's okay. Because what's going to happen is, if I like it, I'm going to tell more people about it. And not just me. I'm talking about, like, in general, gamers. They will tell other people about it. And they'll be like, oh my god, dude, this game's so awesome. You got to check it out. And that is what you call word of mouth. Whereas if you try to milk people for everything they got, like Shadow of War, like Call of Duty World War II, like Battlefront 2, people are actually going to say, nah, dude, that game's bullshit. It's just all about loot boxes and pay to win and all this other fucking nonsense that nobody really wants to be a part of. And that is ultimately going to breed you a lot of ill will, which is what you're getting right now. I mean, gamers are already pretty upset with a lot of things that are happening in the gaming industry. And everybody trying to shift to this games as a service, you're just going to breed more ill will. Like, I remember one of the comments that I've heard recently, I think it was Pretty Good Gaming or something, on another channel on YouTube, because I follow a lot of other news channels and stuff. And they were saying that apparently in a meeting at EA, someone said, FIFA something Ultimate Team generates us $1 billion. Where's your version of that? When they were talking about the Star Wars Visceral game or something of that nature. Either way, what I want to bring up about that is, like, look, just because a certain game can make $1 billion doesn't mean you can get lightning to strike twice. Doesn't mean you can make every fucking franchise in your company suddenly generate $1 billion. It's not going to work like that. And if you just want to do that, and if all you want to do is, you know, have those titles that just generate billions and billions of dollars, what's going to end up happening is you're going to kill off all of your studios. Not just Visceral. You're going to kill off BioWare. They're probably next ones on the chopping block. You're going to kill off everybody. Because, you know, certain things work in certain titles. Like, obviously, the FIFA shit is working because, although I understand why the FIFA shit is working, FIFA shit is working because people are obsessed about football. Like, everybody, at least not everybody, but I would say 80 to 90% of the population in Europe and Southern Americas, I would say, South America, they are obsessed about football. They love it. I mean, I live in Europe and I don't give two shits about football, if I'm to be completely honest. But I can tell you right now, people are legit obsessed about it. So I'm not surprised that you can milk the fuck out of these people that are obsessed about football. I'm not surprised. But you're not, you know, that's not a market that's going to last you forever, because eventually people catch on. You know, it's the same thing as the Wii, for instance. You know how Nintendo had the Wii and it had this big hit because it hit the big casual market and everybody bought a fucking Wii. I bought a fucking Wii. And what ended up happening is they tried double down with the Wii U. Look what happened. You know, no, it's just probably one of the, not the biggest failures, because there are consoles who failed way harder than the Wii U, but it was still a pretty big failure. All things considered, it was still a pretty big failure, especially when compared with the Wii. Same thing is going to be happening with all this loot box nonsense. You know, you keep pushing this games as a service, you keep pushing all of this nonsense down people's throats, and eventually you're going to get fucked up. So that's all I'm saying. There's room for games as a service. Not every single game needs to be that game, because, you know, those games cannibalize each other. There's room for usually one, maybe two games as a service in someone's life, because you have to constantly pour money into it, because you have to constantly pour time into it. So these games cannibalize each other. And if every fucking company in the world starts doing their game that is a service, a lot of companies are going to die. That's all I'm going to say. So start thinking about potentially working on something else, or start thinking about packing your fucking bags because you're leaving the gaming industry. Now, another important topic that I want to tackle real quick. This is particularly important because of the Paris Games Week PlayStation presentation. That's kind of like what brought me to talk about this. And that is virtual reality multiplayer. So a lot of games recently have been released that are multiplayer-only virtual reality games. And a lot more of them were just announced at Paris Games Week. And why is this a problem, you guys might want? Well, it's a problem because not a lot of people have VR headsets. And if you take into consideration that not only not a lot of people have VR headsets, but on top of it, the people that do have VR headsets, they're looking for immersive experiences. You know, experiences that they can really immerse themselves into a world and just enjoy it at their own pace. Because we need to understand, virtual reality is still taking its baby steps. It's very much baby steps in the virtual reality business right now. So you'll want people immersed, taking their time, dipping their toes into the water. And all of these VR multiplayer shooters, and because there's a ton of them, there are shooters, others are whatever, but it's usually some kind of multiplayer deathmatch, capture the flag, some variation of that bullshit. I saw tons of those being announced at Paris Games Week. Why is this a problem? Because think about it. So the subset of people that play VR games, for starters, they're just dipping their toes into VR, because 2017 is the year that you kind of just dip your toes. You're not going balls deep into VR at this point. Forget about it. It's not even close to being mainstream. Okay, not even close to being mainstream. So the people who are dipping their toes, they're picking and choosing their experiences, like I said, for things that they can experience and just enjoy. They're not looking to go into a fucking deathmatch. The guy's like, oh, you don't know? I don't know. Okay, so I'm not sure if it was this year or last. I think it was this year, because this year was when I bought my PlayStation VR. A game came out called Star Blood Arena. I bet most of you never even heard of that game. Doesn't surprise me. Star Blood Arena came out. I received the code to play it day of. So I went in, started playing it, and I wanted to record some stuff so that I could show you guys about the game and whatnot. What ended up happening was I couldn't get a single decent multiplayer match. Guess why? Not that many people were playing. Another game kind of came and went was Rigs. You know, there were actually quite a few people playing it back then, though, because Rigs kind of came out at the same time as PSVR. So that was fun. That worked for a while, and then you never heard of Rigs again. I know I haven't heard of it in a long-ass time. I haven't really played it in a long-ass time either, but haven't heard of it in a long-ass time. And it's like all of these resources being placed into making all of these multiplayer games. I don't think you guys are going to have a good time. That's all I'm saying, because I don't think there is yet a market for VR multiplayer, and the fact that there are so many multiplayer games coming out for virtual reality, I think it's actually a disservice. You would do better on focusing on doing something more single player. I'm not saying there's no room for VR multiplayer. There clearly is. But even Eve Valkyrie is like moving on from that stuff, because they noticed that there's just no market out there. And Eve Valkyrie is like across all platforms. It's not even limited to one platform. So you're talking about, from Paris Games Week stuff, you're talking about a subset of a subset of a subset of an audience. Like, that's some real fucking hopeful, that's some hopeful shit you got going on there. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but in my opinion, it's not going to go very well for them. But I don't know. I could be completely wrong. Either way, it is time, like I promised, I was going to bring out some positivity. Because, you know, people are like, oh man, all this loot box shit and all this other stuff, and it's all over, gaming is over, we're all done. It's like, let's just go back to watching movies at the cinema or something. I don't fucking know. But it's like, while all of this nasty stuff is happening, there are some good things happening as well. Like, for instance, Super Mario Odyssey came out. That game's fucking fantastic. You know, it doesn't have loot boxes on it. It has in-game cosmetics that you can buy with in-game currency. Isn't that like some fucking really innovative shit? Not to mention, it's one of the best games that I've played this year. So, you know, instead of focusing on just all of this negativity that I just talked about, let's also remember there's some really cool shit happening in the gaming industry. Like Horizon Zero Dawn. Those of you who've played Horizon Zero Dawn this year, you guys probably had a blast. The DLC's coming out. Has anyone even barely mentioned that? DLC's coming out this month. There's DLC coming out for Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's probably going to be pretty cool. I'm going to be playing it. You know, there's another thing to look forward to. Dragon's Dogma came out on PlayStation 4 last month. We've been playing that on the channel. That's also pretty cool, the fact that it came to PlayStation 4. Who knows? Maybe even eventually we'll have the Dark Souls trilogy we've been clamoring for so long. As a matter of fact, on the PlayStation 4, it could even include Demon Souls. You know, it's a good time to revisit that stuff. Then there's a game that will keep you entertained for about 100 hours that also came out this year. That if you haven't played it, maybe now's the time to do it. Persona 5. Persona 5, fucking fantastic game. One of the best games came out this year. You know, there's a lot of good shit going on in gaming still. If you haven't played Persona 5 yet, maybe now's the time to do it. Instead of buying into this microtransaction bullshit with, you know, Call of Duty, Battlefront, and Shadow of War. Maybe instead of buying into that stuff, maybe just get Persona 5 instead. Have fun. There's also a new Pokemon game coming out on the 3DS this month. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, for all of you Pokemon fans out there. For the people on Xbox, you guys got Cuphead, which is looking pretty good, even though it's not really my kind of game personally, but it's looking pretty good. I know a lot of stuff about Xbox. I haven't been following the news on Xbox. I guess Microsoft's been backing Shadow of War a lot, so yeah, it kind of fucked up there. Anyway, and in December, we're getting Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And that's almost like a drop the mic moment. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Splat. You know, it's like, it's not all doom and gloom. There's plenty of cool shit still in gaming. As a matter of fact, I didn't even bring up Elite Dangerous, which I meant to, because like with the patch 2.4 and the return of the Thargoids are coming back, maybe you're an Elite Dangerous guy, maybe you're coming back to the game because like all of this stuff happened. There's plenty of cool things happening in gaming. We just got to get people to also focus on the positive and not just focus on all of this loot box nonsense. Just like, you know, just do the stuff that you like. Just vote with your wallet. Get some other good games. Work on your backlog. You know, everybody, every gamer in the world is constantly complaining about their backlog. And now we're complaining about loot boxes in Shadow of War. Look, dude, there's really nasty loot boxes in Shadow of War. Yes, there are. Same thing for Battlefront 2 and Call of Duty and other titles, right? There's really nasty loot boxes in all those games. Well, guess what? Don't you have a backlog? Play another one of your games. There's plenty of good games still out there. There's plenty of good stuff happening in the gaming industry. Let's try to focus a little bit on that as well, shall we? Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're new here, subscribe so that you're always notified when there's a new video or a live stream on the channel. If you really enjoyed, consider sponsoring. There's an option for that in the description. Works very much like a Twitch subscription type of thing. Comments and feedback in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next one.